right, sure. Hello, everyone. So my name is Saman Naz, and I'm finishing my PhD at Penn State right now. So this is so we have changed the title of this study a little bit. The new title is Minority Majority Religious Group Differences in Fertility, Exploring the Impact of the Degree of Minority Status in South Asia. This is the outline of today's presentation. As the title suggests, in this study, we examine minority-majority religious group differences in fertility. Differential fertility has been widely studied. Despite this, demographers have struggled to explain why the impact of religion on fertility varies across contexts. Explanations of the relationship between religion and fertility are primarily divided between ideological, socioeconomic, and cultural theories. So there are three hypotheses that are discussed in this line of work. The first one is particularistic theology hypothesis, which states that high fertility is related to the ideologies of particular religions. The second one is characteristics hypothesis, which states that members of religious minorities have high fertility due to low education and low socioeconomic status. And the third hypothesis is the minority status hypothesis, which states that members of religious minorities have high or low fertility due to their minority status. So this hypothesis is primarily about the states that the minority religious status could impact fertility in either direction, depending on the group's local socioeconomic circumstances. In this paper, we are able to test aspects of all three hypotheses. We test the first hypothesis by a multi-country comparison of different minority and majority religious groups. We test the second hypothesis by using propensity score matching, and we test the minority status hypothesis by examining the impact of the degree of minority status within a country. I will discuss these methodologies in detail shortly, but broadly, the first two hypotheses have been studied before. However, to our knowledge, this is the first analysis where we attempt to empirically test the minority status hypothesis in South Asia. We have chosen to study the fertility differences between Hindus and Muslims in South Asia. We studied three selected South Asian countries: Bangladesh, where Muslims are a majority religious group, and Hindus are the minority, and India and Nepal, where Hindus are majority and Muslims are in minority. We use latest available demographic and health surveys from these countries. We also used latest census data from all these countries to examine regional proportion of minority-majority religious groups. Moving on to the methods of this study, our treatment variable is 0 for majority religious group and 1 for the minority religious group. So in case of India, the majority religious group is Hindu, whereas minority religious group is Muslim. So in the treatment variable, 0 is for Hindus and 1 is for Muslims. However, in case of Bangladesh, minority is Hindus and majority is Muslims. Our outcome variables include 3 selected fertility indicators: number of children ever born, age at first birth, and current contraceptive use, 2 of which are proximate determinants of fertility, and 1 is an indicator of fertility itself. We use the propensity score matching approach because it allows for a more effective control of socioeconomic variables, of socioeconomic variation between groups than the conventional covariate adjustment as control variables. We match the majority and minority religious groups on the following confounders: women's age, women's education, wealth index, and urban residence. We applied 1-to-1 nearest neighbor matching and excluded the unmatched women from the analysis. So in summary, using propensity score matching, we matched each member of the minority religious group to a majority religious group member with similar socioeconomic and demographic characteristics. This created a balance between the two groups. On this slide, I show the balance table for India. where I present the unmatched sample and the matched sample. So in this, this is a big table, so I will explain things one by one. So on this, in this selected area, we have the unmatched sample, the characteristics from the unmatched sample. You will notice that overall there are 500,000 Hindus and 94,000 Muslims, and for all the four confounding variables are urban residence, women's education, wealth index, and age of the woman, the difference between Hindus and Muslims is statistically significant. However, after matching, the sample size for Hindus is equal to the Muslims because we did one-to-one nearest neighbor matching. So now there are around 94,000 Muslims in the sample and 94,000 Hindus. However, the difference between these two groups in terms of the four confounding variables is not statistically significant anymore. But if we compare the outcome variables, the three outcome variables, age at first birth, number of children ever born, and current contraceptive use, the difference between the two groups was significantly different in the unmatched sample, and it remained significantly different in the matched sample as well. So next, in this, this table shows the overall results for three outcome variables that compare fertility indicators in these three countries. The number of children ever born, current contraceptive use, and age at first birth are the three outcome variables. So for current, children ever born and age at first birth, the coefficients show multivariate regression from OLS, and for current contraceptive use, results are from logistic regression. The reference category for these coefficients is the majority religion, as mentioned in the second row of this table. So in case of Bangladesh, the reference category is Hindus. In case of India, the reference category is Muslims, and same is the case for Nepal. So moving on to the results. For the number of children ever born in Bangladesh, Muslims have on average 0.45, Hindus have on average 0.45 less number of children ever born as compared to Muslims. In India, Muslims have on average 0.303 more children ever born as compared to Hindus. Similarly, in Nepal, Muslim minority has 0.655 more children ever born as compared to the Hindu majorities. Similarly, for our current contraceptive use, in Bangladesh, Hindus have higher log odds of contraceptive use. However, this difference was only marginally significant. And Muslims have lower log odds of contraceptive use in both India and Nepal, and these results were significant. For age at first birth, in Bangladesh, Hindus have higher age at first birth, and in India, Muslims have higher age at first birth. But the difference between the difference in age at first birth was not significant in Nepal. Next, we use census to classify districts in each of these countries based on the proportion of the majority religious group population. As these maps show, the majority religious group are not necessarily a majority in every district across the country. For instance, in India, in 74 of the total 640 districts, less than 30% of the total population is Hindu. We use this classification to examine if the direction of the main results changes in areas where the majority religious group at the national level is not in majority. So I present these results in next few slides, and these results are classified by each country. So this slide shows the results for India for each of these outcome indicators. So the first graph is for children ever born, the second graph is for current contraceptive use, and third graph is for age at first birth. But first I will discuss how to read these figures. So for example, in case of age at first birth, for India, I find that Muslims have significantly higher So for example, in case of, these results are for India and for age at first birth. So in areas where less than 25% of the total population is Hindus, the age at first birth is significantly higher amongst Muslims as compared to Hindus. The second category is the areas where 25 to 85% of the total population is Hindus. So in these districts, the Muslims have significantly lower age, mean age at first marriage as compared to Hindus. This third category is the districts where more than 85% of the total population is Hindus. And in these areas, the difference between Muslims and Hindus in terms of age at first birth was not significant. So that's how we will read these results. So coming back to the children ever born. So this first result shows that for India, Muslims have significantly higher number of children ever born across all areas, except those districts where Hindus are less than 25% of the total population. And that's what I highlight here. For current contraceptive use, Muslims have significantly higher contraceptive use than Hindus in districts where Hindus are less than 25% of the total population. However, the difference is not significant in districts where 25 to 25 to 85% of the total population is Hindus, and Muslims have significantly lower contraceptive use in districts where more than 85% of the population is Hindus. This means that in India, when Muslims are living in a district where they are not a minority, their current contraceptive use is similar to or higher than Hindus with comparable socioeconomic status. Next, this slide shows the results for Bangladesh. Here in Bangladesh, again, I find that Hindus have significantly lower number of children ever born than Muslims across all areas, except in districts where 90 to 95% of the total population is Muslims. For current contraceptive use, Hindus have significantly higher current contraceptive use in districts where less than 90%, of the total population is Muslims. However, the difference between Hindus and Muslims is not significant for contraceptive use in areas where more than 90% of the total population is Muslims. And for age at first birth, Hindus have higher age at first birth. However, the statistical significance of these results is mixed. Next, for Nepal. In Nepal, the Muslims have significantly higher number of children ever born than Hindus, except for areas where Hindus are more than 85% of the total population. Similarly, the difference between Hindus and Muslims in current contraceptive use is not significant in areas where more than 80% of the total population is Hindus. For age at first birth, the difference is not significant in areas where more than 75% of the total population is Hindus. However, Muslims have lower age at first birth in areas where less than 75% of the total population is Hindus. So in summary, the first hypothesis is partially supported because irrespective of a minority or majority status, Muslims have higher fertility levels than Hindus in all three countries. However, the fertility indicators of Muslims are not always higher than Hindus for the subgroups based on the degree of minority status at the district level. So we concluded that the particularistic theology hypothesis is partially supported by our analysis. The characteristics hypothesis is not supported because even after the propensity score matching, the members of the religious minorities have high fertility. Irrespective of the socioeconomic status, the differences, the characteristic hypothesis was not supported. And lastly, the results support the minority status hypothesis by showing that degree of minority status within a country or region matters for fertility and reproductive health outcomes, though the direction of the results varied across countries. So on this slide, I would like to highlight that our results support the two variations in minority status hypothesis, that members of religious minorities have higher or lower fertility due to their minority status, but whether the fertility is higher or lower varies across the countries. So this is a comparison for the current contraceptive use. In Bangladesh and Nepal, minorities' fertility behavior assimilated with the majority religious group in geographic areas where there is where the dominant religious group was in vast majority, as shown in these comparative figures. In contrast, in India, minority group had significantly higher fertility in geographic areas where the dominant religious group was in vast majority. The majority status hypothesis provides an explanation for this trend by suggesting that if a minority group feels economically and politically disadvantaged, their minority status might encourage them to have higher fertility for group preservation. This may be the case in India, where the districts with a Hindu majority population have significantly higher indicators of fertility among the Muslim majority, among the Muslim minority, than districts where Hindus are not in majority. This interpretation is consistent with the long history of religious or communal conflicts between Hindus and Muslims in India, particularly in some regions of the country. The minority status hypothesis further suggests that in other circumstances, when the minority religious group does not feel economically or politically threatened, they may aim to limit their fertility to achieve upward social and economic mobility. We believe that this may be the case in Bangladesh and Nepal. Thank you for your time, and we welcome your feedback on this study.